Marcus Reed sat in the back corner of Joe's diner, studying the worn plastic menu. He'd removed his Rolex an hour ago and left it in the glove compartment. His $5,000 suit was replaced with jeans and a plain grey hoodie from a gas station. No one here recognized him. No one stared. No one wanted anything from him. That's exactly what he needed. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a yellowish glow over the cracked vinyl booths. The smell of fried food and coffee filled the air. Marcus couldn't remember the last time he'd been somewhere this ordinary. His assistant usually made reservations at restaurants where meals cost more than most people's monthly rent. A waitress approached his table. She looked tired. Her name tag read, Sarah. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her uniform was faded from too many washes. She pulled out a small notepad. "What can I get you?" Her voice was polite but flat, rehearsed. "Just a steak," Marcus said. "Medium rare. Whatever comes with it." Sarah nodded and turned to leave, but something made Marcus look up. Her hands were shaking slightly as she wrote, not from nervousness, from exhaustion. Or maybe something worse. Before we continue, let us know in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe to The Goodness Effect. Marcus watched her walk toward the kitchen. 3 other tables needed attention, and she moved between them mechanically, forcing smiles that never reached her eyes. When she delivered plates to a family booth, a little girl knocked over her milk. Sarah cleaned it, without complaint, even when the father didn't apologize. He'd come here to escape. His penthouse felt like a prison lately. The marble floors, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, all of it meaningless. Everyone he met wanted something. Business deals, donations, partnership. Even his friends, if he could call them that, only reached out when they needed connections. Last week, he'd celebrated his 42nd birthday alone. Sarah returned 15 minutes later with his steak. She set it down carefully, and Marcus noticed something tucked under the edge of his plate. A folded piece of paper, small enough that no one else would see it. His fork stopped halfway to his mouth. Sarah had already moved to the next table, taking an order from an elderly couple. She didn't look back at him. Marcus unfolded the note. The handwriting was rushed, almost frantic. "I know who you are. Please don't leave yet. I need to talk to you after my shift. It's about your daughter." Marcus read the note 3 more times. Each word felt like a punch to his chest. He didn't have a daughter. He'd never been married. No children. No family beyond distant cousins he hadn't spoken to in years. This had to be a mistake, or worse, some kind of scam. His first instinct was to leave immediately. Crumple the note, drop cash on the table, and walk out. But something stopped him. The way Sarah's hands had trembled, the exhaustion in her eyes. She didn't look like a con artist. She looked desperate. Marcus forced himself to cut into the steak. The meat was overcooked despite his order, but he barely tasted it. His mind raced through possibilities. Had someone told her who he was? Security footage from outside, recognition despite his casual clothes. And why mention a daughter he didn't have? He studied Sarah between bites. She worked with practiced efficiency, but her movements were rushed, almost panicked. When she reached for a coffee pot, she fumbled and nearly dropped it. Another waitress, younger with bright red hair, touched her shoulder and whispered something. Sarah shook her head firmly. The dinner rush intensified. Families crowded into booths. Workers grabbed quick meals at the counter. Sarah handled it all, but Marcus noticed details others might miss. She refilled water glasses before customers asked. She remembered orders without checking her notepad. She slipped an extra dinner roll to an old man who looked like he hadn't eaten all day. Small acts of kindness, in a place where kindness probably didn't pay well. Marcus checked his watch, an old Timex he'd found in his desk drawer. Sarah's shift had to end eventually. He ordered coffee he didn't want, then pie he wouldn't finish. Anything to justify staying. An hour passed. Then, another. The crowd thinned. Tables emptied. The red-haired waitress left through the back. Sarah wiped down the counter, glancing toward Marcus's table every few minutes. She looked nervous now, like she was debating whether she'd made a terrible mistake. Finally, the manager, a heavy-set man with a mustache, locked the front door and flipped the open sign to closed. He counted the register while Sarah finished cleaning. "I'm heading out," the manager called. "Lock up when you're done, Sarah." "Will do, Mike." The manager disappeared through the kitchen. A back door slammed shut. The diner fell silent except for the hum of the refrigerators and the distant buzz of the neon sign outside. Sarah walked slowly to Marcus's table. She looked terrified. "Thank you for staying," she whispered. I wasn't sure you would. Marcus leaned back, keeping his expression neutral. You said something about a daughter. I don't have any children. Sarah pulled out the chair across from him and sat down. Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them away. I know, she said quietly, but I think you might, and I'm pretty sure she's mine. Marcus stared at Sarah, trying to make sense of her words. That's impossible. I've never met you before tonight. Sarah's hands twisted together on the table. Not me, my sister. 17 years ago. The diner felt smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in. Marcus searched his memory, going back nearly 2 decades. 17 years ago he'd been 25, fresh out of business school, building his first company from nothing. He'd worked 100-hour weeks, slept on office floors, survived on vending machine food. But there had been one weekend, a college reunion. Too much alcohol, a woman whose name he'd struggled to remember even the next morning. Sarah watched recognition dawn on his face. Her name was Jennifer Walsh. Jenny, you met her at Stanford. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. It was one night. I know, Sarah's voice was steady now, clinical almost. She got pregnant. She didn't tell you, didn't tell anyone except me. Our parents would have disowned her. They were very religious. She planned to give the baby up for adoption. Planned, Marcus caught the past tense. She changed her mind when Emma was born. Kept her, raised her alone, worked 2 jobs. Sarah's jaw tightened. Jenny died 3 years ago. Cancer. She left Emma with me. Marcus tried to process this. A daughter, 14 years old, living with an aunt who worked herself to exhaustion in a diner. Why tell me now, he asked. Why not 3 years ago when your sister died? Sarah looked down at her hands. Jenny made me promise not to. She didn't want your money. Didn't want anything from you. She was proud like that. Stubborn. A sad smile crossed her face. But things are different now. Different? How? Sarah stood abruptly and walked to her purse behind the counter. She pulled out a manila folder and brought it back to the table. Inside were hospital bills. Dozens of them. Emma was diagnosed with leukemia 4 months ago. Sarah's voice cracked. The treatment is working, but insurance doesn't cover everything. I've sold Jenny's house, my car. I've taken every extra shift. It's not enough. The bills totaled hundreds of thousands of dollars. Marcus had spent more on artwork for his office, but seeing the numbers in this context made them feel massive. Each page represented a piece of a child's life, a gamble against death. There's a new treatment, Sarah continued. Experimental, but Emma's doctor thinks it could save her life, give her a real chance. But it costs. She couldn't finish the sentence. Marcus looked up from the papers. You want me to pay for it? I want you to meet her first. Sarah's voice turned fierce. I don't want your money unless you understand what you're paying for. Unless you see who she is. Emma doesn't about you. She thinks her father died before she was born. That's what Jenny told her. I won't take your money and disappear. If you help us, you have to be in her life, actually be there. The demand surprised Marcus. Most people who wanted his money preferred him to stay distant, uninvolved, just sign the check and leave. What if I'm not her father? Marcus asked quietly. 17 years is a long time. Your sister might have been mistaken. Sarah reached into the folder and pulled out a photograph. It was a school picture from this year. A teenage girl with dark hair and striking blue eyes smiled at the camera. She had Marcus's eyes, his jawline, his exact expression when he was trying to look confident. You tell me, Sarah said. Marcus couldn't stop looking at the photograph. Emma's smile was slightly crooked, just like his. She had a dimple in her left cheek. The same one he saw in the mirror every morning. Where is she now? He asked. Hospital. She's finishing a round of chemo. Sarah checked her phone. Visiting hours end at 9. But I know the night nurses. They let me stay late. Marcus checked the old Timex. 8:30. Take me to her. Sarah shook her head. Not tonight. She's too sick right now. The treatments make her weak, nauseous. She wouldn't want a stranger seeing her like that. She paused. Come back tomorrow, Saturday. I have the day off. We'll talk to her together. What will you tell her? The truth. Sarah's voice was firm. That her father is alive, that he didn't know about her, that he wants to meet her. After that, it's up to Emma. Marcus nodded slowly. And if she doesn't want to meet me, then you walk away. No hard feelings. No obligations. Sarah pulled out another piece of paper, the one Marcus thought was just the note. On the back was an address, written in the same rushed handwriting. My apartment. Tomorrow at 10. She stood up, gathering the hospital bills back into the folder. I should go. Emma calls before she goes to sleep. Wait. Marcus reached for his wallet, then stopped. He'd left his regular wallet at home. The one in his pocket held maybe $60. I don't want money tonight. Sarah's expression softened slightly. If you show up tomorrow, that'll be enough. If you don't, she shrugged, then I'll find another way. I always do. She walked toward the kitchen, then stopped and looked back. Mr. Reed? Emma's a good kid. Smart, funny. She wants to be a doctor someday. Before she got sick, she volunteered at a food bank every weekend. She's better than either of us deserve. Then Sarah was gone, leaving Marcus alone in the empty diner. He sat there for a long time, staring at the photograph. A daughter. For 17 years he'd existed without knowing she was in the world. While he'd been building companies and accumulating wealth, Emma had been growing up without him, taking her first steps, learning to read, celebrating birthdays, fighting cancer, all without a father. Marcus thought about his own childhood. His dad had died when he was 12. A heart attack, sudden and brutal. He remembered the emptiness that followed, the feeling that part of him had been amputated. He'd channeled that pain into ambition, into success, into building an empire that his father would have been proud of. But what was it all worth if he'd missed the chance to be a father himself? He looked around the diner, the worn booths, the scratched counters, the flickering neon sign outside that buzzed judder because the E had burned out. This wasn't his world. He didn't belong here. But Emma was his blood. Marcus pulled out his phone, his real phone, the one with 100 unread messages from investors, lawyers, assistants. None of it mattered right now. He made a call. Richards, I need a full background check. Sarah Walsh and Jennifer Walsh. Everything you can find. And medical records for an Emma Walsh. Age 14. Yes, I know it's after hours. I don't care. I need it by morning. He ended the call and stared at Emma's photograph again. Those blue eyes looked back at him with confidence and hope. The eyes of someone who didn't know how cruel the world could be. Marcus had 48 hours to decide if he'd help save his daughter's life or walk away like she'd never existed. He already knew his answer. He just didn't know if he was ready for what it would mean. Marcus pulled up to Sarah's apartment building at 9:50 the next morning. He'd barely slept. The background check had come through at 6, confirming everything Sarah had told him. Jennifer Walsh had died of ovarian cancer. Sarah worked 3 jobs. The diner, weekend house cleaning, and occasional night shifts at a grocery store. Emma's medical file was heartbreaking. Stage 3 leukemia. 4 months of aggressive treatment, a 30% chance of survival without the experimental therapy. The building was in a rough neighborhood. Graffiti covered the walls. A broken playground sat empty beside the parking lot. Marcus climbed 3 flights of stairs to apartment 3. Sarah answered on the first knock. She looked different in daylight, younger than he'd thought, maybe 30. The exhaustion was still there, carved into her features like permanent marks. You came, she said, relief evident in her voice. Did you think I wouldn't? Honestly, I gave it 50-50 odds. Sarah stepped aside. Emma's in the living room. She's nervous. The apartment was tiny, but immaculately clean. Second-hand furniture arranged carefully, pictures on every wall, mostly of Emma at various ages. Emma as a toddler with a woman who must have been Jennifer. Emma on her first day of school. Emma at a science fair, holding a blue ribbon. A whole life Marcus had missed. Emma sat on the couch, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders despite the warm day. She'd lost her hair to chemo, and the scarf covering her head was bright yellow. She was thinner than in her cell photo, her face hollowed out by illness, but those blue eyes were the same sharp, intelligent, wary. Hi, Marcus said, his voice rougher than intended. Hi. Emma's voice was small. Sarah sat beside Emma, taking her niece's hand. Emma, this is Marcus Reed. He's your father. Emma stared at Marcus for a long moment. Aunt Sarah told me this morning. About Mom lying. About you being alive. I didn't know, Marcus said quickly. About you. If I had. You would have what? Been there. Emma's voice wasn't angry, just curious. Mom said my dad was a good guy, that he would have been a good father if he'd lived. She never told me his name, never showed me pictures. I used to imagine what he looked like. Marcus sat in the chair across from them. Do I look like you imagined? A small smile touched Emma's lips. You're taller, but you have my eyes. Or I have yours, I guess. They talked for an hour. Sarah made coffee and disappeared into the kitchen, giving them space. Marcus learned that Emma loved biology, that she wanted to cure diseases, that her favorite food was strawberry ice cream. Emma asked careful questions about Marcus's life, avoiding anything too personal, testing the waters. Aunt Sarah says you're rich, Emma finally said. Like really rich. Marcus nodded. I've been lucky in business. She also says you might help with the medical bills. Emma looked down at her hands. You don't have to, I know you don't owe me anything. You're my daughter. Biologically, yeah. But you didn't raise me. You didn't know I existed until yesterday. Emma's maturity was startling. I just don't want you to feel obligated. That's not fair to anyone. Marcus leaned forward. What if I want to help? Then I'd say thank you. But I'd also wonder what happens after. Do you pay the bills and disappear? Do you want to be in my life? Emma's eyes met his directly. Because I don't need a checkbook. I need to know if I'm getting a dad or just a donor. The bluntness of the question hit Marcus hard. I don't know how to be a father. I never had the chance to learn. Neither did I have the chance to learn being a daughter to you. Emma pulled the blanket tighter. But if you're willing to try, so am I. Sarah emerged from the kitchen with a tray of coffee cups. Emma has a doctor's appointment Monday. They'll discuss the new treatment protocol. I'll be there, Marcus said. Emma looked surprised. You don't have to. I'll be there, Marcus repeated firmly. And every appointment after that. Monday morning, Marcus cleared his entire schedule. His assistant was baffled. He never cancelled board meetings, never rescheduled investor calls. But Marcus didn't care. He showed up at the hospital at 8 sharp, finding Sarah and Emma in the waiting room. Dr. Patel was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a straightforward manner. She explained the experimental treatment in detail. The success rates, the risks, the astronomical cost. Even with the treatment, Emma's chances improved to about 70%, Dr. Patel said carefully. It's not a guarantee. Nothing in medicine is. When can we start? Marcus asked. Dr. Patel looked at Sarah. The insurance approval process typically takes weeks, sometimes months. I'll pay cash, Marcus said. Whatever it costs. We start immediately. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Emma just stared at Marcus like he'd performed a miracle. But Dr. Patel hesitated. Mr. Reed, you understand this could cost upwards of $800,000, and that's just the treatment. Recovery, physical therapy, follow-up care. I understand. Draw up the paperwork. The treatment began that Wednesday. Marcus sat with Emma during the first infusion, watching poison drip into her veins to kill the poison in her blood. She was brave, cracking jokes when the nausea hit, apologizing when she threw up. You don't have to stay, Emma said weakly after the nurses left. This part isn't fun. I'm not going anywhere. And he didn't. Marcus rearranged his life around hospital schedules. He worked from Emma's hospital room on his laptop. He learned which nurses were the friendliest. He figured out that strawberry ice cream helped with the nausea, and that Emma liked old movies, black and white classics that distracted her from the pain. Sarah watched all of this with cautious optimism. She still worked her shifts at the diner, but Marcus had quietly paid off her debts, bought her a reliable car, and set up a trust for Emma's future. Sarah had protested at first, pride stinging, but Marcus had been firm. You kept my daughter alive, he'd told her. You worked yourself to exhaustion for her. This isn't charity, this is what family does. The word family had made Sarah cry, but not everything was perfect. News of Marcus's involvement with Emma leaked somehow, a nurse maybe, or a hospital administrator who recognized him. Within 2 weeks, reporters were calling. Then showing up at the hospital, then digging into Jennifer's past, Emma's illness, Sarah's financial struggles. The headlines were brutal. Billionaire's secret love child fights cancer. Marcus Reed hid daughter for years. Tech mogul's sick teen, a scandal exposed. None of it was true, but truth didn't matter. Marcus's lawyers worked overtime sending cease and desist letters. His PR team crafted statements that the damage was done. Worse, Emma saw the articles. Someone at school, someone who should have been a friend, sent her links with cruel comments. Using her cancer for money. Fake story for publicity. Gold digger family. Emma stopped talking much after that. She withdrew into herself, polite but distant even with Marcus. He could see her shutting down, building walls. Give her time, Sarah advised. She's 14 and fighting cancer. The world just told her that her father is some kind of villain and she's a pawn. That's a lot to process. Marcus didn't know how to fix it. He couldn't sue everyone, couldn't force the truth into people's minds, couldn't protect Emma from the ugliness of public scrutiny. Then Emma collapsed during a treatment session. The doctors called it a complication. Emma's body was rejecting the treatment. Her white blood cell count had crashed. Infections were setting in. They moved her to intensive care, tubes and machines suddenly surrounding her. Marcus stood outside the ICU, feeling more helpless than he'd ever felt in his life. Inside that room was his daughter, a girl he'd known for only 3 weeks, but who had somehow become his entire world, and he couldn't do anything to help her. Sarah sat beside him, silent. They'd been there for 6 hours. "She's strong," Sarah finally whispered. "Like Jenny. She'll fight." "What if it's not enough?" Sarah didn't answer. Dr. Patel emerged from the ICU at midnight. Her expression was carefully neutral. "Emma's stable for now. The next 48 hours are critical. We're doing everything we can." Marcus nodded numbly. "Can I see her?" 2 minutes. "She needs rest." Emma looked tiny in the hospital bed, surrounded by beeping machines and IV lines. Her eyes were closed, her breathing shallow. Marcus approached quietly and took her hand. "I'm here, Emma. I'm not leaving." Her eyes fluttered open. "Dad?" The word was barely a whisper, but it hit Marcus like thunder. "Yes, sweetheart, I'm here. I'm scared." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "Me too, but you're the bravest person I've ever met. You're going to beat this." Emma's grip on his hand strengthened slightly. "If I don't, tell Aunt Sarah thank you. For everything. And tell her I love her." "You'll tell her yourself," Marcus insisted. "Promise me something else." Emma's voice was fading. "Don't blame yourself for not being there before. Mom made that choice. You didn't know. It's not your fault." Marcus couldn't speak. Tears ran down his face, the first time he'd cried in 20 years. "And the reporters," Emma continued weakly. "They don't know us. They don't matter. You've been here. That's what counts." The machines beeped more urgently. A nurse appeared. "Mr. Reed, you need to leave now." Marcus kissed Emma's forehead. "I love you. Fight hard, okay?" "Okay," Emma breathed. "Love you too, Dad." The next 2 days were hell. Marcus and Sarah lived in the waiting room. Friends from the diner brought food they didn't eat. Emma's classmates started a prayer chain. Even some of the reporters backed off, the human story breaking through the scandal. On the 3rd day, Dr. Patel came out smiling. "She's improving. The infection is responding to antibiotics. Her body is accepting the treatment again." Marcus nearly collapsed with relief. Emma's recovery was slow but steady. The treatment worked. By the end of 3 months, her cancer was in remission. The doctors used words like miracle and remarkable response. Marcus knew better. It wasn't a miracle. It was Emma's strength, Sarah's love, medicine's power, and maybe, just maybe, a father showing up when it mattered most. 6 months after that night in the diner, Marcus sat in the same booth where this had all started. Emma and Sarah sat across from him. Emma's hair had grown back in soft curls. Color had returned her to cheeks. She looked healthy, vibrant, alive. They ordered steaks, medium rare. "To new beginnings," Marcus said, raising his water glass. "To family," Sarah added. Emma clinked her glass against theirs. "To second chances." The waitress, who brought their food, was new. A college student working her way through school. She didn't recognize Marcus. She just saw a man having dinner with his daughter and her aunt, laughing over shared stories, planning a future together. As they ate, Marcus thought about the note that had changed everything. That small piece of paper with desperate handwriting. The bravery it had taken for Sarah to reach out. The courage Emma had shown in accepting him. The second chance they'd all been given. His empty luxury penthouse had been replaced with Sunday dinners at Sarah's apartment. Business meetings now competed with Emma's school events. His calendar filled with recitals, parent-teacher conferences, and hospital checkups. He'd never been happier. "Dad?" Emma said, pulling him from his thoughts. "Yeah? Thank you for staying." Marcus smiled, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. "Thank you for letting me." Outside, the diner's neon sign flickered in the darkness. Joe's Diner, the missing E still unrepaired. Inside, a family that hadn't existed 2 seasons ago sat tatted, bound not by blood alone, but by choice. By showing up, by fighting through the hard parts. by understanding that sometimes the most important things in life are delivered in the form of a desperate note from a stranger who becomes family. Marcus Reed had gone undercover to escape his empty life. Instead, a waitress had handed him purpose, connection, and the daughter he'd never known he needed. And everything changed.